Suppose that at one time you were very anxious, with worries of the future and never at ease. But then you were introduced to Stoicism, an ancient philosophy which became life-changing for you and set you on the path to being free of anxiety. Stoicism has taught you that the key to peace of mind is acceptance of what is real. Instead of being concerned over what you cannot change, you've now learned to focus on your own thoughts, actions, and reactions to the events around you. And it was this simple but tremendously powerful insight that helped to divert your attention from unhelpful worries and strengthen your resilience against life's challenges. In this video, I will tell you my personal story about how Stoicism helped me rid myself of anxiety and share with you 10 life-changing principles that I put into practice. I hope this shall inspire you as well. Accepting the nature of things helped me to accept the inevitable. The Stoics believed that the world was governed by the laws of nature and that there was no point in resisting those laws. Accepting the inevitable is the key to peace of mind. When I started practicing this principle, I stopped fighting things beyond my control and began to accept difficulties as a natural part of life. For example, I used to be very concerned about changes in my life, moving, job changes, losses. Now I realize that change is inevitable, and the sooner I accept it, the easier it will be for me. This has reduced my anxiety and made me more flexible in the face of change. The dichotomy of control changed my perception of life. One of the most powerful realizations for me was understanding the dichotomy of control as described by Epictetus. I came to realize that only my thoughts, actions, and reactions are within my power, while everything else is not. In the past, I spent an enormous amount of energy worrying about what others thought of me, how external circumstances would unfold, or whether my expectations would be met. This led to constant anxiety and a sense of helplessness. When I began consciously applying this principle, my anxiety started to diminish. I understood that I cannot change external events, but I can change my attitude toward them. For example, if someone criticizes me, I cannot control their words or intentions, but I can control my reaction. Instead of feeling irritated or engaging in self-criticism, I try to see it as an opportunity for growth. This principle has allowed me to redirect my energy toward aspects of life that are truly within my control. Now, when I face an anxiety-inducing situation, I ask myself, can I change this? If the answer is yes, I look for a solution. If not, I let go of the situation and focus on what is within my power. Being aware of the present moment has reduced my anxiety. A lot of my anxiety was related to thinking about the future, about what could go wrong. But the Stoics taught us to live in the present moment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The past is no longer yours, the future has not yet arrived, but the present is all you have." When I started focusing on the present, the anxiety started to go away. Now, when I catch myself worrying about the future, I return to the here and now moment, feeling my breath, focusing on the task at hand. This helps me stay calm. Being prepared for the worst has lessened my fear. One of the main sources of anxiety is fear of the unknown. We fear what might happen, what might go wrong. The Stoics offered a technique to help reduce this fear: premeditation of calamity, premeditatio malorum. The idea is to mentally visualize the worst possible outcome of an event and prepare for it. When I started using this method, my fears decreased significantly. For example, if I was worried about failing at an important meeting, I started to mentally replay the worst-case scenario. What would happen if I failed? Would I lose everything? Would it turn out to be a disaster? Most of the time, I realized that the consequences were not as bad as I thought. Minimalism has freed me from material anxieties. I used to worry a lot about money, material possessions, and the future. I was afraid of losing my job, not being able to provide for myself, or facing financial difficulties. However, while studying Stoicism, I came across Seneca's ideas on voluntary simplicity. He recommended living modestly from time to time, wearing simple clothes and eating modestly to realize that happiness does not depend on material goods. Difficulties have hardened my character. The Stoics saw difficulties not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The obstacle on the path becomes the path itself." When I began to apply this principle, my attitude toward stress and difficulty changed. I now see challenges as opportunities to temper my character and become stronger. I realized that every difficulty I face makes me wiser, more patient, and more resilient. Instead of complaining about circumstances, I am learning to adapt and use them as an opportunity for personal growth. Actions are more important than words. The Stoics valued actions more than words. They believed that we should live according to our principles. I realized that instead of worrying about what I think or feel, I should focus on what I do. This allowed me to become more confident in myself. When I began to focus on actions rather than worries, my anxiety decreased. The Stoics practiced the principle of memento mori, remember death. At first glance, this idea may seem gloomy, but in fact it holds powerful liberation. Realizing that our lives are finite helps us prioritize and focus on what really matters. I used to spend a huge amount of time worrying about the future, worrying about insignificant things, and fearing possible failure. But when I started regularly reminding myself that every day could be my last, my anxiety eased. Now when I catch myself having anxious thoughts, I ask myself, is this worth my energy? If today were my last day, would I worry about it? Practicing memento mori has made me more grateful for the simple joys of life. Instead of putting off happiness for later, I try to savor the moment. A cup of hot coffee, a walk in the park, a meeting with loved ones. I realized that the value of life is not in the number of years lived, but in the awareness of each moment. The Stoics also reminded me that fear of death is meaningless. It is inevitable, and to worry about it is to waste time on something that cannot be changed. Instead, we should focus on how we live our lives. As Seneca said, life is short if we don't know how to use it. Now I try to live my life in such a way that when I look back, I don't regret the wasted days. Instead of trying to be liked by everyone, I focused on being true to myself. This does not mean that I became indifferent to the opinion of others, but now it does not control my emotions and decisions. I also realize that seeking approval makes a person vulnerable. If my self-esteem is dependent on other people's opinions, then it can easily collapse. By freeing myself from this dependence, I gained inner independence and resilience. Now when someone criticizes me, I ask myself, is this an objective criticism that can help me become a better person, or just someone's subjective opinion? If it's helpful, I take note. If not, I let it pass me by. Self-sufficiency has given me peace of mind and confidence. Now I know that my happiness is in my hands, not in other people's words. Self-sufficiency brings inner peace. I used to depend on the opinions of others. I was looking for approval, afraid of being judged and constantly comparing myself with others. Any criticism could knock me out, while praise, on the contrary, temporarily gave me confidence. But Stoicism taught me that reliance on external approval is a shaky construct. The Stoics believed that true peace could only be found within oneself. Seneca wrote, "If you seek peace in the outside world, you will always be dependent. Find peace within yourself and no one can take it away from you." When I started following this principle, my anxiety decreased significantly. I realized that I didn't need to prove my worth to anyone else. Everything I do should be in line with my own principles and beliefs. I now try to evaluate my actions based on Stoic virtues. Instead of worrying about how others perceive me, I ask myself, was I wise in my decisions? Was I fair to others? Did I show courage in difficult situations? Have I been able to maintain moderation and not succumb to excesses? This gave me clear guidelines. I realized that if I live by these principles, I can be calm regardless of external circumstances. For example, if I fail, but I acted reasonably and honestly, I have nothing to regret. If I lose something material but retain my dignity, I still remain an advantage. The Stoics taught that the only thing we have complete control over is our character and our actions, and that is what makes us free. Now, when anxiety tries to take over, I remind myself, I can't control everything, but I can control who I am. If I am living virtuously, then I am on the right path. Virtue is the main goal of life. The Stoics taught that happiness is not achieved through external circumstances, but through virtue. They emphasized four main virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. When I realized that the true value of life is not in wealth, fame, or recognition, but in how I act, my anxiety began to disappear. I used to worry about how successful I was by other people's standards. Am I earning enough? Have I achieved what society expects of me? But then I asked myself, what if success is simply living life according to the right principles? In conclusion, Stoicism has become not just a philosophy, but a real tool for me to fight anxiety. By applying its principles, I learned to share control, accept the inevitable, live in the present, and face my fears. I realized that difficulties are not enemies but teachers, that actions rather than words matter, that reminders of death make life more meaningful, and that inner self-sufficiency brings peace. But the most important lesson I have learned is that happiness does not depend on external circumstances. It is born within us when we live virtuously, consciously, and with dignity. We can't control the world around us, but we can control our thoughts, decisions, and actions. Now, when anxiety tries to return, I ask myself a simple question: is it within my control? If yes, I act. If not, I let go. And in that is true freedom. Stoicism has not made me insensitive or indifferent. On the contrary, it has taught me to appreciate life more deeply, act more courageously, and worry less. And if you, like me, once struggled with anxiety, I hope these lessons will help you as much as they have helped me.